standoff between the Trump regime and the courts is looming, and the Fourth Circuit's ruling yesterday reinforced the historical weight of this moment. In small towns across the country, Republicans on recess are being met with angry hordes of constituents. Trump has set his sights on a new group to target with his executive actions, and the Supreme Court just agreed to entertain the bonkers Birthright citizenship order that shouldn't even be given the time of day. A lot has happened this week, and the never-ending onslaught of information can be nearly impossible to keep up with. Well, I've been trying to do some of that heavy lifting for you, and today I'm going to highlight some of the most important stories from this week, from the executive branch to Congress to the courts and everything in between. Honestly, you're welcome. Let's get into it. You guys, even though everything seems really bad, one thing is still really, really good: bread. I'm thrilled to say that my partner on today's video is Wild Grain, the first bake-from-frozen subscription box for sourdough breads, artisanal pastries, and fresh pasta. It's a carb box, y'all, delivered straight to your door. Wild Grain partners with small bakers and pasta makers across the country to bring you fresh carbs. Like, what more could you ever possibly want in life? Get that fresh sourdough without the work. They use slow fermentation that can be easier on your belly, richer in nutrients and antioxidants, and can help lower blood sugar spikes. And this is freezer to table in 25 minutes. Every item you receive from Wild Grain bakes in 25 minutes or less, so you can enjoy homemade quality whenever you want. Like, I'm sorry, have you ever just had croissants on demand? Like, I could really go for a hot, buttery, delicious croissant, and then bam, in 20 minutes you get it. It's really thrilling. Recently, I tried their biscuits for the first time, specifically the herb Parmesan biscuits, and like 10 out of 10. Such a fun, delicious thing to have on hand. And Wild Grain even offers completely gluten-free boxes. If you want fresh breads, pastries, and pastas delivered straight to your door, and literally why would you not? Be sure to click on my link in the description and use my code Leeja30 to get $30 off your first box, plus you get free croissants for life if you use my link. You heard that right. Free croissants for life if you use my link below, along with my code Leeja30. Honestly, you're welcome. Thanks, Wild Grain. We'll turn first to immigration because it truly is the place where Trump is attempting to orchestrate his greatest infringement on human rights. Yesterday, it was reported that Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen visited El Salvador and was able to meet with 𝗖𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧. A photo was shared of the two sitting down at a table to talk. See my episode from Wednesday for a deeper dive into that case. Van Hollen was initially denied a meeting with 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪 when he was stopped at a military checkpoint about a mile from the prison, and I think it's notable that this meeting was used as a photo op, and specifically that 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪 was given civilian clothes to wear to the meeting, and that it was held in a hotel away from the prison. In U.S. courts, defendants are given the right to wear civilian clothes to their trials in order to give them the dignity to appear human to the jury instead of wearing an orange jumpsuit, which could bias the jury against them. In this case, the optics of seeing 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪 in civilian clothes and denying entry to the prison complex is an attempt to give the world a false sense that the Salvadorian prison where he's being held isn't as bad as they're all saying it is. I think President Bukele, probably in cahoots with the Trump administration, is trying to thread the needle here. First, here's a photo op of immigrants being forcibly strip searched, bent over, heads shaved. Isn't this such a scary place? You should definitely toe the line unless you want to end up here. But on the other hand, see, 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪 is alive and well. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. According to the New York Times, quote, Mr. Bukele, in a social media post, even crowed that 𝗖𝗓𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪, miraculously risen from the death camps and torture, was now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. But according to a person familiar with the situation, a Bukele aide placed the two glasses with cherries and salted rims on the table in front of Mr. Van Hollen and Mr. 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪 in the middle of their meeting in an attempt to stage the photo. Staging this photo op is like textbook authoritarian propaganda. Not to be outdone, our authoritarian head propagandist, 28-year-old Republican women's makeup enthusiast Karoline Leavitt, staged a press conference Wednesday in which she said, quote, it's appalling and sad that Senator Van Hollen and the Democrats applauding his trip to El Salvador today are incapable of having any shred of common sense or empathy for their own constituents. Then, like a show pony, she brought out Patty Morin, the mother of a Maryland woman, Rachel Morin, who was murdered in 2023 by an immigrant from El Salvador. Reminder that studies show immigrants are less likely than U.S.-born citizens to commit crimes, and that 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪 did not murder this woman. But the playbook is dehumanize immigrants, form them into one giant, terrifying, faceless mask so that you can then point to one person's heinous actions and say, see, they're all like this. Republicans are capitalizing on the tragedy of one woman's death to demonize an entire group of people and justify the deportation of a man they themselves admitted should never have been deported. Despite admitting that they made an error, they've doubled down through Karoline Leavitt as their mouthpiece on the idea that 𝗓𝗓𝗪𝗧𝗪 is a member of MS-13, despite no legitimate evidence to to prove that he is. They point to an allegation against him that didn't hold up in court the first time, clinging to this shred of a lie to justify vast human rights abuses. It's truly cruel, despicable behavior. And it had me reflecting about growing up learning about the Holocaust, and it's always felt so completely inconceivable to understand how people could do such horrific things to other humans. How could a society arrive at a place where it becomes acceptable to do that? But in the last few weeks, I have started to understand. We are seeing something similar play out before our eyes. And that is not to downplay the severity of the Holocaust, it is to communicate the severity of the times we are in. We are watching people being kidnapped and deported to a violent, deadly prison, and we are watching the regime then double down and say they are doing it to protect us. They are justified. These people are nothing more than terrorists and criminals. And even though there is ample evidence that most of the people being deported have never done anything wrong, throngs of people still believe them. They are still cheering them on. And even if any of the people being deported have done crimes, there is nothing to justify this treatment. Human beings do not deserve treatment like this. This is a violation of even the most basic of human rights and constitutional rights, rights that are extended, yes, even to accused and even to convicted criminals, including the ones sitting in the White House right now. More Democrats are planning to visit El Salvador to shine a light on the prison and on �値𝗡𝗧𝗏's case, using it as a tool to gain Democratic support while vilifying the Trump administration. Most notably, this includes Cory Booker, who's clearly gunning for a presidential run in 2028, who's announced plans to go down for a visit. And in a major development to �値𝗡𝗧𝗏's case, the Fourth Circuit heard an appeal from the Trump administration to delay the district court's inquiry into �値𝗡𝗧𝗏's deportation. And the Fourth Circuit, in a unanimous ruling, did not mince words in its 7-page opinion, saying, quote, "It is difficult in some cases to get to the very heart of the matter, but in this case, it is not hard at all. The government is asserting a right to stash away residents of this country in foreign prisons without the semblance of due process that is the foundation of our constitutional order. Further, it claims in essence that because it has rid itself of custody that there is nothing that can be done. This should be shocking not only to judges, but to the intuitive sense of liberty that Americans far removed from courthouses still hold dear." And then whatever court clerk wrote this decision really went off on a soapbox tangent, which I'm entirely here for, but which reads like kind of an old-timey court ruling. It says, "Now the branches come too close to grinding irrevocably against one another in a conflict that promises to diminish both. This is a losing proposition all around. The judiciary will lose much from the constant intimations of its illegitimacy, to which by dint of custom and detachment we can only sparingly reply. The executive will lose much from a public perception of its lawlessness and all of its attendant contagions. The executive may succeed for a time in weakening the courts, but over time, history will script the tragic gap between what was and all that might have been, and law in time will sign its epitaph. It is, as we have noted, all too possible to see in this case an incipient crisis, but it may present an opportunity as well. We yet cling to the hope that it is not naive to believe our good brethren in the executive branch perceive the rule of law as vital to the American ethos. This case presents their unique chance to vindicate that value and to summon the best that is within us while there is still time." Dramatic, but I think it meets the current moment with the judicial gravitas it deserves, frankly. Basically, this means that the executive branch needs to respect the judicial branch if it expects to be respected in return, and if it doesn't, then we're fucked. Separately, Senator Shaheen, head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, has requested a copy of the agreement between the U.S. and El Salvador for the use of 𝗖𝗏 to house deportees for the U.S. We've heard about the agreement, but the actual details have never been made public. Under a law passed in 2022, the executive branch is required to have a certain level of transparency in its international agreements, and they're required to disclose and publish the agreements, especially when requested by the Senate. And this could be important in �値𝗡𝗧𝗏's case and others because it will allow us all to see exactly what we've agreed to and what El Salvador has agreed to, and would make it clear that the U.S. is party to this agreement and could act if it wanted to bring �値𝗡𝗡𝗧𝗏 home and fix their administrative error. I can't imagine the government won't put up a fight in releasing the agreement publicly. And moving into other executive branch activities, specifically DOGE, a whistleblower from the NLRB has come forward and confirmed what many of us feared and suspected, that Elon Musk is abusing DOGE to gain inside knowledge that could give him a leg up on his business's competition, allegedly. Specifically, the whistleblower says DOGE has accessed NLRB databases, that's the National Labor Relations Board, the one tasked with protecting workers and mediating unionization and labor disputes, investigating labor abuses, etc. And now that DOGE has gotten in there, they've been doing some really shady shit, including, as NPR reported, quote, "Members of the DOGE team asked that their activities not be logged on the system, and then appeared to try try to cover their tracks behind them, turning off monitoring tools and manually deleting records of their access. Evasive behavior that several cybersecurity experts interviewed by NPR compared to what criminal or state-sponsored hackers might do. And specifically alarming, according to NPR, NLRB IT employees started detecting suspicious login attempts from an IP address in Russia, and the person attempting to log in had the correct passwords. According to reporting from NPR, who spoke to labor law experts, quote, if the data gets out, it could be abused, including by private companies with cases before the agency that might get insights into damaging testimony, union leadership, legal strategies, and internal data on competitors, Musk's SpaceX among them. It could also intimidate whistleblowers who might speak up about unfair labor practices, and it could sow distrust in the NLRB's independence. This level of security breach could be happening across the government, because DOGE has been accused of numerous acts that breach security protocol, from USAID to the Social Security Administration and beyond. So, just so we're clear, an immigrant to the United States is directing a legion of goons, some of which are directly connected to underground hacking networks, to access sensitive information about citizens across the government, and that sensitive information may or may not be getting leaked to hackers in Russia, all under the guise of government efficiency, and yet has done nothing to actually increase efficiency. If anything, he's just sown chaos that has reduced efficiency, and under that cover has managed to get his hands on sensitive information that he could use to further enrich himself, which has absolutely nothing to do with the purported mission of DOGE and is actively illegal. Got it. Because Musk is a very special little government employee, the law limits his role to 130 days, meaning he'd need to step down as DOGE department head by May 30th. He's told Fox News that he thinks DOGE will have accomplished its goal by then, though considering it doesn't appear DOGE has saved the government any money, I'm not sure that that's true, though he may have accomplished his goal by then of extracting enough information and doing enough damage to his competitors that he can skip off into the sunset and continue to enrich himself with insider information and live happily ever after. Something tells me the Trump administration will find some way to argue around the 130-day limit, especially considering they've been cagey about ever really defining Musk's role to begin with. If it's not an official role, it doesn't have to follow official laws, right? So I'll be keeping my eye on that May 30th deadline to see how the regime argues its way out of that one. Elsewhere in the executive branch, Trump made comments yesterday that indicate the direction his executive orders and attacks on his enemies will likely go. He's been preoccupied with attacking his named enemies, attacking law firms that have done him wrong, and going after universities, with Harvard notably standing up to him this week despite the risk to its federal contracts and grants. Next, it appears Trump will be going after the nonprofits and civil society groups that have stood up to him. Yesterday, he told reporters his administration is looking at Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, also known as CREW, which is a watchdog group that's filed lawsuits against his executive actions and is actively investigating his conflicts of interest. CREW's mission on its website states, at CREW, we use aggressive legal actions, in-depth investigations, and innovative policy and reform work to achieve the vision of an ethical, accountable, and open government. So obviously, Trump hates that. Specifically, he discussed going after their tax-exempt status. Charities and nonprofits benefit from tax-exempt status, and it's also a handy way for the federal government to start meddling. Threatening the tax-exempt status of all sorts of organizations isn't new. In fact, it was used quite effectively in the 70s to force schools to integrate or face removal of their tax-exempt status. Experts posit that it is this attack on the tax-exempt status, especially of religious schools, in the wake of Brown v. Board of Education, that really radicalized the right into the party that it is today. So if anyone understands the damaging potential of going after tax exemption, it's the Republican Party. The regime has also asked the IRS to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status as well, so it's clearly a tool they will be using to go after any organization that finds itself in Trump's crosshairs, which makes sense considering the fact that it is tax-exempt organizations like CREW, like the ACLU, and so many more that are doing most of the litigation work to try to hold the Trump regime accountable for its actions and to protect the rights of some of the country's most vulnerable populations. And removing tax-exempt status from already strapped organizations will have devastating consequences. Combine that with his crackdown on large law firms who have capitulated to him and promised to do only pro bono legal work that he approves of, and the regime will have effectively strangled any and all legal resistance to their actions. And so while our eyes are glued to the ongoing court battles and whether the Trump administration will or won't comply, it's also important to note that part of this regime's plan is to snuff out any legal challenges from the beginning. So it won't matter whether or not it's following court orders, there will be no one seeking those orders to begin with. And it is the work of watchdog groups like CREW that alerts us to the injustices being perpetrated by the government. Without them, we can more easily be lulled into a false sense of normalcy and complacency. This is just another example of the all-encompassing nature of Project 2025 and how thoroughly they are working to impose authoritarian order on all aspects of our society. So I will be keeping my eyes peeled in the coming days for executive actions targeting nonprofits and watchdog groups that have been thorns in the side of the regime, preventing it from being able to fully carry out its mission. According to reporting from AP, some nonprofits expect Trump may start taking action to specifically target environmental groups on Earth Day, which is Tuesday, and would be incredibly on brand for this administration. I'm envisioning an executive order titled something like Restoring America's Natural Resource Dominance, and saying that it is the policy of this administration that we honor the Earth this Earth Day by extracting as much from the land as we possibly can. Moving from the executive branch to Congress, this week members were out on recess, and while typically they use these recesses as an opportunity to return home and talk to their constituents, many Republicans were unwilling to face the music, and those that did were met yet again with an onslaught of angry voters. My favorite clip was from a town hall held by Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, who, by the way, is fucking ancient. This man is 91, and I think my heart grew 3 sizes watching a bunch of old people yell at each other.
The president of that country is not subject to our U.S. Supreme Court.
I'm pissed.
And you know when a Midwestern boomer yells, "I'm pissed," that he means business. Marjorie Taylor Greene also held a town hall before which attendees had to prove their residence in order to be let in. Even despite those measures and a heavy police presence, it erupted into chaos almost immediately as 2 hecklers were forcibly removed after police used stun guns on them. But most Republican representatives and senators have declined to hold town hall meetings at all, a move that is also garnering criticism, but at least it saves them from the embarrassing videos and sound bites, I guess. But constituents are taking notice of their absence, and many Democrats are using this opening to go to Republican districts and listen to the concerns of voters in an attempt to win over people who are watching their rights and protections crumble while their elected representatives run and hide. So I guess good on Chuck Grassley for even showing up to begin with, though I imagine it is easier to take verbal abuse when you can no longer hear because you're fucking 91 years old. And in the judicial branch, the Supreme Court announced yesterday that it'll be hearing arguments in a few weeks on President Trump's Birthright citizenship order. Oral arguments are set for May 15th at 10 a.m. The order, which would end birthright citizenship, meaning anyone born in the U.S. to non-U.S. parents in the future would not be automatically granted citizenship. That order is currently paused pending the outcome of numerous lawsuits filed to challenge it. These oral arguments are related to 3 separate lawsuits, which have been collectively granted 1 oral argument since they're all addressing the same question. But the question is not, in fact, whether or not ending birthright citizenship is constitutional. That's not what the Supreme Court will decide, at least not at this juncture in the case. Instead, they will rule on the Trump administration's assertion that these district courts do not have the authority to impose nationwide bans on executive orders. The Trump administration is, of course, arguing that the nationwide bans encroach on the executive power of the president. The lawyers for the states of Washington, Arizona, Illinois, and Oregon, the states who brought these challenges to the birthright citizenship order, argue that the nationwide injunctions are perfectly legal, have decades of precedent, that every single district court that was asked to determine the constitutionality of that order issued an injunction to stop it from moving forward, and that the federal government is being hyperbolic and untruthful when it says that this injunction is an emergency that the court has to weigh on. The government is not going to suffer irreparable harm if the executive order is paused pending the outcome of these cases. And in any event, there is no reasonable probability that the Supreme Court would even side with the government on this one if they agree to hear the cases at all, given the long-standing and entirely settled nature of birthright citizenship, which has been affirmed by the Supreme Court in the past, and which is clear given just the plain language of the 14th Amendment, which says all persons born in the United States are citizens of the United States. Now, would this specific Supreme Court entertain actually looking into overturning this long-held precedent? Yeah, maybe. But the state's lawyers are arguing that, generally speaking, it's highly improbable that the Supreme Court, given the history and precedent of birthright citizenship, would or should actually entertain the government's asinine arguments. The fact that the Supreme Court granted cert to hear this appeal to begin with, however, doesn't bode well. If they felt it was clear and that there was no need to genuinely consider the case at all, they would have denied cert, which would have left the temporary injunctions on the order in place. 4 justices are needed to approve cert and agree to hear the case, which means that 4 justices believed there was enough of an argument here that it deserved to be heard. The fact that they're entertaining this appeal indicates that they may also entertain an appeal on the actual merits of the case, which is spooky. But it also means that their determination could undermine the nationwide injunctions currently holding back some of the onslaught of Trump's executive orders. So the outcome of the court's decision could be not only to allow the order ending birthright citizenship to take effect, even as the case plays out in court, but also to rule that all temporary injunctions are invalid, at least as they pertain to nationwide bans, which would then lead to chaos because perhaps the injunction would hold in Arizona, where the judge issued it, for example, but not in the states where there have not been injunctions, creating a weird patchwork of executive order enforcement. So a baby born to immigrant parents in Arizona is a citizen, but one born to immigrant parents in Minnesota is not. Like, the fact that the Supreme Court is even entertaining this appeal is disconcerting. They may surprise us. They might decide nationwide injunctions are cool, and Amy Coney Barrett has been occasionally siding with the liberal justices, especially in the more batshit decisions, much to the chagrin of conservatives, but you truly never know with this court. Established law and precedent don't hold a lot of sway with them, and Clarence Thomas has, of course, indicated that he would be interested in doing away with lower court's ability to issue nationwide injunctions. We'll see what they decide after the May 15th arguments. And now, I'd like to take a minute to step back and give you some action items if you're feeling overwhelmed. Just 2 that I think will make a big impact on your life and mental well-being in these trying times. First, call your representatives. I know, don't click away. It's annoying, it feels pointless, but I promise you, it does have an impact. Get comfortable with calling them and just make it a habit to call them to chat a few times a week. Use 5calls.org. You can set your location, it'll populate your representatives, and then you can click on issues that you care about. It will literally just give you a script, and you just click the call button. It's really so much less scary than it sounds. It takes 5 minutes, and it's important that it is a phone call as opposed to an email or letter. It's the phone calls that really piss people off. They are really annoyed about the number of phone calls they're getting, and 5calls.org makes it incredibly easy. Not sponsored, it just does, okay? So that's 1. 2, meet your neighbors. You become so much more resilient the second that you know your neighbors, especially if you exchange contact information. You can literally knock on their doors and just tell them you're interested in connecting with your neighbors. Bring them a baked good or something if you feel weird showing up empty-handed. Just make contact and you will feel so much more connected and less vulnerable. If you want to take it a step further, create a neighborhood pod. It can be as simple as just a chat on WhatsApp or wherever for the people in your immediate vicinity. It doesn't have to be a particularly active chat, but it's a line of communication that connects you to other people, which not only increases the safety of your immediate environment because you're not just surrounded by strangers you don't know, but it also will help you get out of your own head and feel connected and grounded. And it is fear and disconnection that this regime is betting on to wear us all down and make us complacent. Don't underestimate the power of these small acts of connecting with your neighbors. I know it doesn't feel big enough to meet the current level of crisis, but it is the small acts of defiance every day that over time do make a difference. And I'm holding on to that hope, and I hope that you will too. If you'd like to support my work and connect with others online, I recommend joining me over on Patreon, where I launched the 𝗦𝗧𝗏𝗧 Co-Learning Lab at the beginning of this year, a learning community having discussions and making connections, along with a monthly syllabus curated by me. All year, we'll be covering topics under the umbrella theme of Eat the Rich, Building Solidarity, and the New Gilded Age. April's topic is all about uncovering how fascism festered in America. This is all hosted over on Patreon, which is linked down below. If you're interested, please join us, patreon.com/LeejaMiller. Thank you to my multi-platinum patrons, Mark, Thomas Orff, Sarah Shelby, Art, David, RH, Latranger Lucas, Joshua Cole, Thomas Johnson, and Tay. Your generosity makes this channel what it is, so thank you. And if you like this episode, you like the one from this past Wednesday, all about the showdown between Trump and the courts in the 𝗓𝗓𝗏𝗧𝗏 case. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.